All right, welcome to the Salt City Hoops live postcast. I'm Mark Pereira. Glad to have you here as always. Loss for the Jazz. We're going to talk about all the good things and bad things that happened today. In order to enjoy that, though, we got probably one of our most fun beers that we've had in quite a while. This comes from Equilibrium Brewing in New York. I'll show this for y'all on screen. Equilibrium does a ton of wild and wacky imperial stouts and porters conditioned on all sorts of weird flavors. And this one it comes to us with a lot of good stuff. We're going to be drinking a lot of them this season. Not a barrel aged, but it is an imperial stout with cinnamon toast crunch cereal. It's funny because the bottle can't say cinnamon toast crunch. It has to say cinnamon toast cereal. Maple syrup, pecan, cinnamon, Madagascar vanilla, and lactose. Yeah, this is candy. This is candy in a glass. Nice inky dark flavor here. I'm excited to be here. This clocks in at 11%, and we're gonna need we need these heavy beers on these tight games the Jazz keep putting us through. So yeah, again, my name's Mark. Salt City Hoops. You'll be seeing an article drop today or tomorrow on my half-season grades for the Jazz. Probably talk a little bit about that today or tomorrow for tomorrow's postcast. I actually think tomorrow's postcast, because the game is so early, we'll probably do a Monday morning coffee postcast. But we might talk a little bit about grades on that front. But I would like to talk about today's game a lot. Because there was a game that we do have a loss to dig into. The Utah still can't get it over back to 500. This is a tough game, though. You know, it's a road game against a similarly situated opponent in Chicago. Not looking likely that we were going to win this game just based on the numbers. But the Jazz do take a lead in the third quarter after a 40-point third quarter. And the Jazz look poised to kind of control the game towards the end of the third quarter. But the fourth quarter comes around, and it was DeMar DeRozan and Zach LaVine taking advantage of the Jazz poor perimeter defense, as they are wont to do over previous games. And the Jazz could not stop Chicago in any method whatsoever, to the tune of allowing Chicago to go for a 42-point fourth quarter. And just as much as I want to laud the success of the Jazz 40-point third quarter, I mean, that's unacceptable from Chicago to give up 40 in the third. Jazz gave up 31 that quarter, by the way, which was also not great. Giving up 42 in a quarter is just abysmal, and that was the Jazz downfall in the fourth quarter. The fourth quarter itself, with DeRozan doing his thing of just no one can match up on him in his silky mid-range game. These aren't contested Kobe shots. A lot of them are just beautiful, finding a spot, coming right off of a screen in the middle of the floor. Vucevic has really figured out his game with DeRozan, and that's how modern NBA defense is coached. Like, let those players take those shots, and a lot of times, if you commit too hard on that, DeRozan was so good at baiting the defenders into fouls. DeRozan shot 9 of 10 from the free throw line. A lot of those came in the fourth quarter, and the Jazz tried 4 different defenders on DeRozan. None of them mattered. We tried Ochai Agbaji. We'll get into him playing a bunch of minutes, 21 minutes today. We tried Talen Horton-Tucker in place of Mike Conley towards the end. Lauri Markkanen had a couple possessions off of switches, and we had Jared Vanderbilt also getting in the action as a primary defender on DeRozan. None of it worked. Yes, DeRozan is going to have these nights where he shoots very well, and he ended up with 35 points and 7 assists. But the game just wasn't hard for him at all. And eventually, if you're too worried about following the guy, sometimes you really just got to crowd a space, trap him way earlier. If you're afraid of him, get the ball out of his hands. Zach LaVine played last night. Chicago was playing on the second night of a back-to-back. LaVine had 11 threes against Philly last night, so obviously he can also score in bunches. And sure, he also is completely dominating the fourth quarter. He ended up shooting 6 of 12 from 3. He had a couple killer threes in the fourth on Mike Conley going under a Vucevic screen both times. Really don't know what the coaching points are there. This has been something that the Jazz have done for a couple years now, is guys like Conley and Clarkson are going under screens on very obvious shooters, and I just don't know if it's because they don't have the verve to get over these screens. This is going to be a wild detour, but a play that I just really took note of at the end of the first or early second quarter, Goran Dragic, backup point guard for Chicago, he just comes off of a real simple screen going from the wing to the baseline set by Vucevic, and Dragic is just kind of drifting towards the baseline. The man guarding him was Mike Conley, and and Walker Kessler was the center. Mike Conley was the ball-handling defensive point guard. And Mike Conley dies on the Vucevic screen so badly and for so long. Like, it's one thing to die on the screen, but then, like, once you get after that initial hit, someone of Mike Conley's size has got to be able to, like, jump over some legs, get around him, just use your quickness to if you can't have that great screen getting around ability, you at least have to do it. But what he does is he gets the screen set on him, and it's almost like the screen is set so hard that it velcros Mike Conley to Vucevic for a good 1.5 seconds, right? And so Walker Kessler is like, all right, he's showing on Dragic, who's in the mid-range, and being like, I'm going to prevent him from shooting a mid-range shot until you're able to catch back up to him, because I got to take Vucevic on the roll. So Conley doesn't get over the screen for so long that Vucevic is he's already rolling to the paint, and Mike Conley's a good 7, 8, 9 feet away from Dragic at this point, and Walker Kessler's in no man's land. He's thinking Dragic, all right, he's got the ball in the mid-range. He's on the baseline. That can be kind of a tricky shot, so I'm just going to commit to Vucevic, and if Dragic wants to back up a couple steps and take that corner three, Mike Conley will probably be able to get back there in time. The end result is Dragic shoots just the most wide open practice baseline jumper you'll ever see. And you can live off of a diet of those, and that's just kind of indicative of the Jazz issues over the past several years. And this is a culprit. There is a common. The team is overhauled, but a common culprit here is Mike Conley just dying on these screens. So on these Levine threes in the fourth quarter, Conley's going under these screens is the fastest way he can get around them, right? And it really becomes a major problem. Eventually, Mike Conley gets subbed out for Talen Horton-Tucker to play the ostensive backup point guard role. I thought that was a weird decision, not because of Horton-Tucker had the size, I think was probably a much better defensive option than Mike Conley for sure. But offensively, the team was pretty okay with letting Jordan Clarkson run the crunch time offense if Mike Conley was going to be on the bench for defensive purposes. If that's the case, I'd rather the Talen Horton-Tucker spot be taken up by somebody who could credibly defend DeMar DeRozan the best. And I thought Talen Horton-Tucker was probably not the best pick for that. And Jared Vanderbilt was actually on the bench for this. So I know that Talen Horton-Tucker attempts threes, but I know that defenses don't give him respect from that distance. Horton-Tucker does go 2 of 4 from 3 today. His 2 makes were wide open. Look, I like the way that he's attempting them, but his three-point rate, I think, is still below 30% or just above 30% this year. He's a very poor three-point shooter. So with the other players on the court being shooters, right? So the other 4 guys on the court were all credible three-point threats. You had Clarkson, Agbaji, we'll get to him in a minute, Markkanen, and Olynyk are all out there as shooters, right? You can survive and have a good, efficient offense with one non-shooter out there. Vanderbilt finished today with 14 rebounds, 0 fouls, and I thought had the best credible defense on DeRozan today. And also, when you're down 10, 8, 5 points as the Jazz were at the end of the fourth quarter, you need a little bit of chaos agent to sort of all right, we can't just let DeRozan waltz into a mid-range shot and get fouled, or he had one driving layup where he just got lightly grazed by Horton-Tucker and got a free throw. You need a little bit more chaos agent in there. And Vanderbilt is the team's best wing defender, right? He's not even all that great at it, but he is the best at it. I thought the Horton Tucker for Conley decision was weird, considering that you could have rolled out a lineup of Clarkson running the offense, Agbaji in the corner shooting threes. He was 4-4 from three, all of them from the corners today. We'll get to him in a minute, I promise. And then you have Olynyk and Markkanen doing their thing in the front court, and then you have Vanderbilt, who can really he's a credible offensive player. And I have many criticisms of Vanderbilt's team defense, but I do think in crunch time situations like that, where your threats to score the ball are isolation situations in the mid-range, I think Vanderbilt would have been the best option there over Talen Horton-Tucker, who failed at his job in the fourth quarter. I'm not sure there was much you could have done against Levine in the fourth quarter. I thought he was draining the threes very well. His third three that he made was a contested look. I forget who played nice defense on it. I think it might have been Markkanen. But I really I have issue with DeRozan with these 20-point second halves. It eventually you have to force the ball out of his hands and make guys like Patrick Williams and Ayo Dosunmu make decisions here, right? Kobe White closed the game ahead of Dosunmu today. And Kobe White is remarkably streaky. Kobe White had the widest open three today and bricked it. And if they're going to leave Kobe White out there, I thought Utah did an okay job exploiting him on the defensive end. I think Clarkson took advantage of him a couple times, which was nice. That's a lineup the Jazz should beat. You should be attacking the rim with reckless abandon. Markkanen had a career-high 8 dunks today. Sorry, taking a sip of this 11% fun beer. So I think the offense at the end of the fourth quarter was fine. You had some good three-point looks. You were crashing the rim a little bit, but ultimately it's just poor defense in the fourth quarter. Will Hardy chalks it up as to just making shots, but I'm not sure that's particularly accurate, because a lot of the three-point shots that the Chicago were taking were wide open. And I'm going to look at, three-point shooting from game to game is going to be fairly fluky, and you can end up with a lot of different situations as far as shooting luck, especially from three. I think the Jazz got unlucky with Malik Beasley in particular not hitting a single three. But immediately after the game, you can think about how open were those threes for either side, and I thought Chicago just had a bevy of wide open shots that I can't say is due to shooting luck in the fourth quarter. So that's my issue with the fourth quarter. Some good things that happened, though. We get the loss. Some people are probably pretty happy about that. A lot of good things happened today, though. I would say just to quickly get out of the way, Lauri Markkanen, another great game today. 28 points, 12 of 20 from the field. I thought he had more free throws than he did. 2 of 3 from the free throw line. 2 of 7 from 3. I thought his defense was the best as we've seen it all year. He was playing very credible defense against ball handlers in the first half. He was tasked guarding Zach LaVine at times in the first half. I thought he did a pretty credible job at that. His lateral movement looks really good. I do not mind Lauri Markkanen getting stuck matching a guy in a switch. I think he's got good verve, good attitude, and he does not foul. Sometimes that can be to his detriment, right? Because his penchant for not being too physical can allow for either easy baskets or some more sillier type fouls. But I do think I think Markkanen is evolving into almost like a credible perimeter defender, or at least defender against your average wing or your above average wing. I'm okay with him defensively now. And I don't think that would have been the case from our assumptions going into the season and from watching him in previous years. I do think that 1 year in Cleveland really did help him play the three, where he gets he learns the footwork with the idea of you have Evan Mobley behind you have Jared Allen behind you, be an aggressive long 7-footer, and figure out what makes you tick as a defender. And if your perimeter ball handling type defenders and Conley and Clarkson, whatever, are going to be very terrible. I said it last postcast, I prefer that the defender be someone who's just long and tall, right? Even if he's just as bad as a defender, because, all right, you blow by Mike Conley, well, Mike Conley's not going to block you from behind. Whereas there's credible idea to the idea of blowing by a guy like Markkanen, blowing by a guy like Olynyk even, and they have ways of contesting shots and making life difficult on a ball handler, even if they themselves get beat. So thought his defense was pretty good today. One real nasty dunk over Vucevic. He had one against Sabonis last week, one against Vucevic this week. His best dunk of the year came against Rudy Gobert. What is with them turning it on and dunking it over fellow Europeans? I was listening to a podcast the other day where it seems like it's almost like the European, not necessarily all international players, but European players, when they get matched up against one another, they tend to get real personal with their insults, and I guess there's like a little bit more heat to those matchups. So maybe Lowry just likes dunking over these folks. We get France for Gobert, Lithuania for Sabonis. I don't know if Domantas Sabonis suited up for Lithuania recently, and Vucevic is. This is gonna kill me that I don't know where he's from. Montenegro, that's right. He's Montenegrin. I was like, I'm pretty sure I know what country he plays for. But yeah, he plays for Montenegro when he does international ball. And Sabonis is Lithuanian, right? I'm not making that up. Yeah, he's Lithuanian. I was like, I'm doubting my Vucevic identity. I'm like, oh, all right, what exactly is he? Vucevic played behind Nikola Pekovic. Nikola Pekovic, remember him in Minnesota? That was a great guy. And then Vucevic played behind Pekovic for Montenegro in the last time he played, but he hasn't played for Montenegro in a long time, I think. Maybe not a whole lot of cultural identity there. Anyway, Markkanen dunked all over Tim today. Real great tomahawk jam. Game today, we also had some more Ochai Agbaji action, guys. This is worth some talking about. So last game, I had an issue with a lot of the praise for Agbaji just because he shot 3 of 3 from the corners, but like that was just corner threes, and he didn't exactly play inspiring defense that makes you think twice. I mainly took issue with his. I mainly took issue with Agbaji's defense because I didn't think it was quite good at all against the Rockets, where he had opportunities to play pretty solid defense against poorer players for Houston, and just didn't really make an impact there. He was often tasked with guarding the Rockets' worst player offensively, right? So it's not like he was put in a position to make impact plays, but like it kind of just goes to the trust of where he's at defensively, right? He's not putting up steals. He's not putting up blocks. He had 0 steals, 0 blocks today. Agbaji goes 4-4 from the corner again today. So he's got 17 points. But more importantly, though, was he had an assist and 3 of 3 from 2, and all of those 4 plays were very good plays. The assist was off of a simple 2-man action on the right side with Vanderbilt being the screener. Agbaji takes the screen, Vanderbilt rolls in, and Agbaji does a nice left-handed bounce pass to Vanderbilt in the pocket that kind of takes Chicago off guard with how good and accurate the pass was. Easy Vanderbilt dunk. That's an NBA pass. That's a difficult ball handling pass that a lot of wings you wouldn't trust them to make. You're not trusting Dorian Finney-Smith with that kind of an action, and I thought it was pretty cute. I thought it was nice. His twos today, he had a nice and one on when there was a double team on the Mike Conley on the left corner, I believe it was. And Agbaji just gets the ball on the perimeter, and he kind of feigns a 3-point shot attempt, and instead he just drives all the way to the basket. DeRozan makes a wild swipe at him in the paint, and it actually dislodges the ball, but Agbaji regains control of it and gets a nice and one. He also had a nice play where, I should preface the other 2-pointer with there was one point where he had made his first 2 threes, and he goes and he pump fakes the third. And a Chicago player just kind of flies right by him, and he passes it around the horn He takes a dribble and like goes to his left, and the guy who flew by him recovered, and then he passed it to another ball handler. But the next time that happened, Agbaji pump faked, guy flew by him, and he drove to the rim, right? And that's the sort of smart basketball play of just, hey, if you get a guy flying by you, they are now behind the play. They will be even further behind the play if you collapse the defense, right? Sure, we all love scoring buckets, but if you have a guy completely out of the play and you're now underneath the rim, if you draw 3 defenders, it's a fairly easy pass to make and figure out who is going to be the open guy. Maybe it's not going to be the guy immediately on the weak side corner, but since you're driving to the basket from the corner, you can find those guys around the wing pretty easily. And it would take a pretty good defensive guesswork to steal those kinds of passes. So, but he crashes to the rim and he gets a nice 2-point bucket out of it. I think that also what was a dunk. So, nice little Agbaji game today. His defense was not great. He was tasked with guarding Chicago's worst player once again. But a couple for stretches, he was tasked with guarding DeRozan in both the first half and the second half, and did not do a very good job of it. There were 2 times he's going to get credit with like acceptable defense on DeRozan. And that was where Ochai falls for a DeRozan pump fake very big. Like, the number one thing you have to do against DeRozan is not bite on the pump fake. And that's obviously harder to do than it is to say, because DeRozan's very good at diversifying when he deploys that pump fake. He doesn't do it just because he feels you're overcommitted. He's thinking like, all right, I'm trying to feel out, give this defender something to think about for the next, the entire rest of the game. But the number one coaching thing is if you bite on the pump fake, he's going to draw that foul. And both times that DeRozan attempted a pump fake on Agbaji, he jumped. And Agbaji puts his arms down. He does like the whole like, oh, sorry, I jumped. Let me try to not be in the way. And both times DeRozan rises for a mid-range jumper, makes contact with Agbaji, does not get the foul call, which was stunning. And one time DeRozan made it, one time he missed it. I thought those were both fouls, and I thought that was indicative of not great defense. But I mean, it's a rookie going against DeMar DeRozan. Gonna have to give him a grade of incomplete on that, right? But not very impactful otherwise, not put in a position to make a ton of impact, given that he was usually guarding someone like Ayo Dosunmu or Patrick Williams in the corner. But his calling card is going to be 3-and-D. And right now he's got 3-point shot ability from the corners. 2 games does not a trend make, so we'll have to see how that kind of goes throughout the season. And we're going to need him to see him shoot threes from various points in the arc and with better contests. A couple of his threes today did have some nice contests. They weren't all wide open like they were the other night. So that was nice. Guy flying at you, make a corner 3. Like, that's an NBA skill. But we're looking for this like top level potential here. And right now it just looks like he's kind of okay. He's worth being out there. I think the most notable thing, we can probably end on this today, is who he's playing over. It's not a single person. Rudy Gay had another miserable game today, and for once, Rudy Gay didn't have a miserable game and put up a dumbfounding plus 15 or something like that. Instead, Rudy Gay did not have a great game, and the plus minus bore that out. But both the other night and tonight, Agbaji's not playing over like a single player, like playing, he's taking Rudy Gay's minutes. Instead, and this is partially because Colin Sexton is out, and so there's like a definite backcourt role. Agbaji's taking minutes away from literally everyone on the roster, right? So if you look at the lineups Agbaji's playing with, the end you had Taylor Horton-Tucker, Clarkson, Agbaji, Olynyk, and Markkanen. The notable people out of that lineup are Conley and Jared Vanderbilt. So Agbaji's closing over Jared Vanderbilt in that situation to give you 4.5 shooters on the floor if you're going to call THT that sort of half shooter type. So he's not playing over Rudy Gay in that situation, in that closing lineup. He also played alongside Rudy Gay a ton in the middle of the game, and that was because Olynyk had foul trouble. And Kelly Olynyk had foul trouble both tonight and 2 nights ago against Houston. So it's unclear if Agbaji got minutes for Olynyk because of that foul trouble? I don't think so, because Hardy has never really pulled Olynyk out of games with his foul situation, except for like the first couple weeks of the season when we really needed Olynyk to just kind of be out there because we couldn't really trust Kessler and Vanderbilt together, the team, those sort of situations. So he's trying to manage Olynyk's minutes by playing some Fontecchio before he was ready, playing some more Rudy Gay minutes actually. Horton Tucker got some run when Olynyk had early foul trouble at the beginning part of the season. So instead, I think it was actually a concerted effort to say, hey, in this lineup, when we have... They played an all-5 wing lineup at one point where they had Beasley, I forget who the second guard was on this lineup, but you had Horton Tucker, Agbaji, and Rudy Gay, right? It's killing me that who the other shooter was on the floor. But it was definitely a 5-wing style lineup. It wasn't Markkanen or Olynyk out there. Might have been Clarkson, but I distinctly remember Horton Tucker being the point guard in this lineup. So I don't think it was Conley or Clarkson, but you had basically THT, Beasley, Agbaji, Gay, and one other guy, and I forget who it was. But Agbaji was getting those minutes over pick any of the starters, really. It might have been Jared Vanderbilt, now that I think of it. Yeah, it was Jared Vanderbilt playing the role of like the non-shooter on the floor. So who is Agbaji getting minutes over in that situation? Is he taking away from minutes from Clarkson and Conley? Is he taking minutes away from Olynyk? He was really kind of picking across minutes from all sorts of guys. He did play a lot of minutes where you would think like Rudy Gay would have those in certain situations where you would expect Rudy Gay to be out there. But still, you had Rudy Gay playing a healthy dose of minutes today, 18 minutes for Rudy Gay. That is not different than a season average. So Agbaji's 21 minutes is coming in place of, Clarkson's only playing 31 minutes, but his season average is a little bit higher than that in competitive games. Jared Vanderbilt only playing 26 minutes today, I thought was a kind of a weird surprise, given that his first half was really gearing up towards like this might be the Jared Vanderbilt game. 15 points, 14 rebounds for Vanderbilt today. And Vanderbilt was finishing around the rim with a little bit more adept. He was a little bit more adept at finishing around the rim than he usually is. I thought his wing defense was adequate. We were never asking Vanderbilt to guard Nikola Vucevic, right? And that's where he got into trouble against guys like Sabonis and Alperen Şengün the last game, where like Vanderbilt can't guard those guys. But Vanderbilt had credible defense against all like everyone else on Chicago, I thought. Instead, he plays 26 minutes with 0 fouls. And I think you're just seeing Agbaji take some of those minutes away from Vanderbilt. Probably the number one guy who lost minutes today for Agbaji. Agbaji finishes -8 in 21 minutes. Vanderbilt was a -2 in 26 minutes. Not really a material difference there. So Agbaji is clearly going to be in the rotation for a little while. Consider what Agbaji is going to look like if this is, a 2 of 4 from 3 game. Let's say he misses one of those 2s. So then it becomes a 4 of 7 game. He's making 12 points, 1 rebound, 1 assist, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 2 fouls, and not great defense. I don't think we're really seeing his praises as much. Some of this is really just about shooting luck. We'd love for it to continue, but he's not going to shoot 100% the rest of the season. So we need to see that defense get way better if he's going to stick on the floor. However, we're going to get to a point where Rudy Gay is eventually going to become like a victim of March-April basketball. So he'll play minutes over there. Horton Tucker's the same thing. Probably shouldn't be playing right now. Horton Tucker, by the way, younger than Ochai Agbaji by quite a bit, I think. So I'm happy to see the Agbaji experiment continue. This season is not about wins and losses. This is about figuring out who can play for the future. But coaches also insist on winning. So this is a move to say, like, hey, can Agbaji help this team right now? Can he help bring the team into the playoffs? Is this a guy who can help play alongside Markkanen and Clarkson as part of like a key 5-man lineup? We'll see. It's possible that the L today is based on just shooting luck. 12 of 41 from 3 today for Utah. That's getting up a lot of threes. 13 of 28 for Chicago. That's 46.4%. Utah did a great job preventing Chicago from shooting a lot of threes. They do like to shoot more threes these days, despite DeRozan frequently shooting 0. He did not attempt any threes today. And yeah, you had some guys for Utah who you'd expect to shoot a little bit more. Markin into a 7. You'd think he makes them. Kelly Olynyk 0 of 3. He's been a great three-point shooter this year. And his looks were wide open. 1 of 7 from Jordan Clarkson. Yeah, you get 3 of 5 from Conley, but that's balanced out by Malik Beasley and Rudy Gay combining for 0 of 9. Right? You expect a little bit more there. So a couple more threes. This might become a more competitive game in the fourth quarter. Grand conclusion here, Markkanen had a great game again. Happy to have him out there. 36 minutes for him. I like not overtaxing him. And nice, efficient, good game from him today. I thought Vanderbilt had a very credible game defensively. 14 rebounds, 15 points. But weirdly did not play a lot. And I think that's in part because Hardy wanted to give Ochai Agbaji a lot more minutes, who got 21 minutes today. 7 of 7 from the field. 4 of 4 from 3, all from the corners. One really nice bounce pass to Vanderbilt for a bucket, but not super great defense at the end of the day. Walker Kessler only 13 minutes today. Didn't quite notice that. So if you want to add up Vanderbilt and Kessler going for 39 minutes, and yeah, there's 9 minutes missing from your center position. I think that's going to Agbaji in these situations. So I think that concludes our Salt City Hoops postcast and beer tonight. I am going to head out. It's Saturday night. We got a close game. Lakers-Kings, classic one. I'm going to check in and see what's going on there. 126-126 in the fourth quarter. That is a barn burner. Can't wait to catch that at the end of that one. Loved having you here. This has been the postcast. I'm Mark. Glad to have this beer with you today. And we'll see you tomorrow. Memphis, that's going to be a challenge on the road before Tuesday at home against Donovan Mitchell and the Cleveland Cavaliers. You know we'll be there for that one. All right, this is me signing off. Have a great night, everybody.